Hi everyone, I'm Chrissy Regan and I'm joined today by the wonderful Jillian Joyce from Pride Human Performance. Hi Jillian, how are you?
I'm well, Chrissy, and thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. It's the end of 2022. So I want to know what thinking big means to you.
Well, thinking big to me means breaking free of the constraints that others might place on you, or what society might place on you, or sometimes even what your current thought patterns might place on you. So, what you can be capable of and what you want to be capable of is limited by what thoughts and what things allow to take, I guess, residence up in your mind and your body and your processes. So thinking big to me is, finding clear space to actually think about what you want, your purpose, I guess, your central why, and then having the confidence to shut out the noise that might be from people that say you can't or you shouldn't, or that type of thing, and really think it through and make a plan. And thinking big might mean acting in small little steps, but always working towards that kind of I can mindset.
Yeah, that's awesome. So your business is called Pride Human Performance. Tell me about the name and what it stands for.
So, Pride Human Performance as a business is I guess, a multidimensional approach to being the best version of yourself that you can be, and working to be better each day. And that might be a little bit, that might be a lot of it every day, but it's about that. The term or the name Pride came about, and it obviously has multiple meanings. It's taking pride in your performance, pride in yourself, and that type of thing. But it also stemmed largely, and our logo is a lion, and it stems from that pride of lions. And when you actually learn about the lion, we see this big, strong lion standing at the front of the pride, or think about Lion King standing up on the rock and that type of stuff. But sitting behind that lion can't exist and be that strong by themselves. They need a support network across a whole range of dimensions. And from that thought process, if we also have a sub brand called Lioness, which is our women's health brand. And actually, the lionesses are the ones that do all the hunting. They're the ones that they're the sustaining, and the pride doesn't exist without the strength of the lionesses. So, you can have the most majestic and amazing lion, but they do not survive independently by themselves. Pride came about largely from a sporting mindset. And the other analogy, I guess, you could look at is the iceberg, where, all we see is that little tip of the iceberg, but there's so much underneath. So, all we see is the hard work, or the person standing up on the podium, but you don't see all the hard work that sits below that. And that's the rest of the pride. So we often say you come to Pride and you're part of the pride, because it's about part of a supportive community that is only as strong as its weakest link, really.
That's awesome. And I agree with your analogy on thinking big. Sometimes I think bigger and scare myself a little bit. Sometimes I might think too big. And then I have to tell myself, Chrissy, don't be ridiculous. That idea is too big. You'll never do that. But I do think that we have those limiting beliefs about ourselves. And we also have condition to go, oh, well, I'm only educated enough to do this. I'm only have the professional experience to do this. I only have the physical capacity to do this. So we don't extend ourselves past those boundaries. Would you agree?
100%. And where you are now, like you may not literally have the knowledge, or you might not have the experience to do that big thing that you're thinking of. But by just going, oh, I can't, you really limit that. So we'll stay in our little box, in our comfort zone, and never extend. So, when I decided to start this business, for instance, I didn't necessarily have the business knowledge and the business skills to run the business, but through a little bit of prodding and people not letting me kind of go, oh, I can't, I did start the business and you learn. So, somebody might go, oh, I really want to run whatever a business, or I want to run a marathon. Oh, that's a silly idea. I can't run a marathon. Well, you can't run a marathon yet. So, the first step is to put your running shoes on and run 50 meters down the road and run 50 meters back. And you're now 100 meters closer to being able to run a marathon than you would be if you were stayed sitting on your lounge. So there's a lot of things that I just think if we just add that word yet to the end of the sentence, the whole thought process can change.
That's true. And when I feel that something's hard and I think, oh, well, let's just make it fun, it doesn't seem so hard anymore, even if I have no idea what I'm doing.
That's right. And do you know what? There's going to be lots of mistakes along the way. Like you might, and it mightn't get there. And, there's lots of sayings, and I'm big on sayings, but, it's never too late and it's never too early to start what you want. And the other thing that I'm constantly hammering, especially with the teenagers that we work with, is the term or the idea of failure has been hijacked as such a negative. So do you know what? I might go, I'm going to go out and run 10Ks today. I get to 8 and I can't go any further. And then all of a sudden we go, oh, I can't do it anymore. I better not run anymore. I can't. And I use running because it's such a, an easy analogy, but it could be anything. So, but then I learned, okay, well, why couldn't I run the 10Ks today? Is it that I'm not ready yet? Is it that I am not fueled enough? What are the things behind it? So this failure has been hijacked as such a negative thing that we try and avoid, whereas failure is such a critical part of, success and growing and developing and becoming a better human being.
That's so true. And it's, we don't talk about the growth mindset enough at any level of society, in my opinion, but it's instilling that why and the yet and the questions that allow us to kind of challenge our thinking around why we didn't do certain things is important. So who have you found or looked to for inspiration in your life?
So I guess I've been very lucky to walk in many circles across my life and have many different people that have been able to contribute. I'm very lucky now to be have found a tribe that is kind of very supportive, and I talk about people. I talk about the path and people shining the light on the path, and I'm very lucky at the moment to have a really supportive group of Townsville business women and people such as yourself. I find inspirational, and other people in business shining the light. But for me, in most recent times, and this is more because of their not because they hold a rank and stuff. I was in the army and I was privileged to work under now General Scott Winter, and he absolutely, as a human being and a leader, is who I draw my inspiration from. He gave me the space and the courage and the time to be able to, I guess, explore who I really was, both within the military and beyond. He supported he was here during the 2019 floods, led the recovery effort of the 2019 floods from a defence perspective, while defence was going through its biggest staffing crisis in terms of 800 families being displaced from their homes, 800 defence families being displaced from their homes. So, the way that he dealt with that and still had time and understanding to print out a colouring in page for my son, who was in evacuation emergency accommodation, that humanity, while still being able to lead, is probably a real inspiration and empowering people. And he said something once that has never left me, and it's now become, start from a place of trust. Nobody deliberately goes out to do the wrong thing. So quite often we are so judgmental and things of people and of ourselves. So sometimes we don't do the right thing. I think very few people deliberately set out to upset others and do the wrong thing. Yet we as individuals beat ourselves up and beat them up in our brains and for that. So, you know, from a business and a personal, like extending myself, you know, I like to take little bits from everybody. Like I see what you've done over the last 12 months in terms of what you've been doing for the cause in the Ukraine, and your books and building your own your own sense of well-being, and that inspires me. And I'm inspired by things like that, because I feel like 5 years ago, the person that I was would have been, oh yeah, you know, good on her, she's running a marathon, whatever. You know, I may have been quite, oh yeah, so what? She's in the paper. She doesn't deserve to be in the paper for that. Oh, I'm doing just as, you know, and those types of negative thoughts, rather than going, how great is that? Right. If she can do it, what is my next big thing that I'm going to get in the paper for, or whatever? Just changing that mindset as well. So and it's through seeing people being so supportive that I've found, I guess, that inspiration.
Yeah, that's really important. And I think when we start to move away from judgment of others, you actually invite more good things and more helpful people into your life. That's certainly what I've found too. And that tribe is so important. So your focus really is on performance. And obviously you've mentioned about my marathon running, but I didn't set out 4 years ago to be a marathon runner. So often we think about peak performance and longevity, and they're kind of confused. So what is your thought on how normal people can stay healthy?
So we are called Pride Human Performance, and it's about, as humans, performing better tomorrow than we are today. And the thing is I come from a sporting background, and my mindset when I was starting the business was largely around sport, which is we set a goal, we understand that goal, we understand ourselves, we make a plan on how we're going to move to the next goal, we work hard, we reassess, and then we achieve those goals and we go, yay, and then we start the process again. And we call it our know, believe, grow, achieve cycle. And then I realized that's no different to a 42-year-old mother who has probably had to put her own needs on the back burner for the last 12 years as she's had kids, and her identity might be a little bit confused for her, and she needs to help understand herself and who she is and what she wants and where she wants to go. So, or it's no different to a 75-year-old man who's starting to his body's starting to potentially not be the same body that he was in 20 years ago or 30 years ago in his brain, and he doesn't want to have that fall and have to go into a nursing home. He loves his garden and wants to stay independent for longer. So they're all performance. Those goals of wanting to be, you know, as a 17-year-old wanting to do what they need to do to make an Australian team, to a 40-year-old wanting to redefine their life and find, you know, space for their passion and themselves, or somebody trying to stay independent for longer. They're all very strong goals where we then put mind, body, and environment. So we talk about, you know, mental health and the right type of thing, you know, looking after our body in the right way for our stage of life and our goals, and the environment we put around us, you know. So we talked before about tribe, and it's the environment is often the forgotten element of performance. So, you know, it can be from, again, a 14-year-old kid that we work with who is committed to coming to the gym each afternoon or something like that to work on their physical environment, and then they've got kids at school going, oh, how stupid, you go to the gym. Well, that's not the right environment and the right people to have around you. And likewise, when, you know, you're wanting to be healthier and that type of thing, where your soul kind of, you need to put the right people around you. And 12 months ago, I was feeling very alone and lost, and then started, you know, finding an environment. We talked about tribe, and I've now got a group of fantastic people, and I don't see them all the time or that type of thing, but I'm able to reach out and do that type of thing because I've got the environment around me. So for me, performance is about doing the right thing at the right time, and where that balance needs to sit between mind, body, and environment. But the goal doesn't have to be some huge through the ceiling. Sometimes it can just be, I want to be happier than I am today, like right now, and doing that work around knowing and understanding why is it that I don't, I'm not waking up happy, or from a more physical sense, why am I constantly waking up feeling like I haven't slept when I've been asleep for 8 hours and things like that. So using a network of people around you that can help you with the knowledge you need.
That's awesome. I agree with you. And so tell me, we talked a bit at Lioness by Pride. What strengthening exercises are good for women in general?
So there's this, I guess, I try to be a myth buster in this area, because strength and resistance training is often overlooked for females, because they will go, oh, I just need to do cardio and I don't want to get bulky and muscly and that type of thing. So from about 30, women start to drop the hormones that help with muscle density, bone density, all of those things that help with the balance and the strength as we age. And then as we go through perimenopause and menopause, we lose even more of those hormones on a dramatic level. The wonderful thing about exercise is that exercise gives you an immediate boost of those hormones. So it's an anti-aging drug. So that's the thing. So the more exercise that you do in a safe and effective manner, it's going to give you a boost of the hormones that are slowly starting to drop off. So it keeps you, I guess, younger metabolically than not exercising. And then the other thing is that muscle mass, that they're also, it's our testosterone levels and things like that naturally mean that when you carry the shopping, you're going to build muscle. Well, we actually have to do some deliberate weight and resistance exercises. And that leads, I guess, to the myth that if I lift weights as a woman, I'm going to get bulky, and that's not true, because of the way that women's bodies work. If we want that muscle, the amount we have to do to look bulky, you don't have time unless it's almost a full-time job. So what we need to be doing is we need to be building and maintaining muscle so that we can support our bones. It increases bone density. So women should be doing, working on 2 to 3 times a week of some amount of resistance and strength training. And that might be through body weight resistance, that might be through weights, that can be through machine-based resistance training, all of those type of things. So again, it's never too late and it's never too early. We have we have some women who've come to us at 75 or a bit older actually, and they've never touched a weight in their life, and they come to us and they're now twice a week in their late 70s, squatting and bench pressing and doing all of those things. And it's not heavy, but we hear great stories about, I can now walk up the stairs without having to grab hold of the railing. And so it's working on their balance and that type of thing. Also, muscle mass helps with heart health and things like that. So while there's always a need for cardio and your 10,000 steps a day and all of that type of thing, that general well-being, it is also critical that women do some amount of strength and resistance training as part of their health regime.
Yeah, that's very insightful. So as you know, I've been visiting your gym to kind of see if I can't get my 47-year-old body a little bit stronger. So I'm looking forward to retesting myself in a few weeks' time. So thank you for that. Many people tend to rush back to exercise, and I see this all the time as a middle-aged person, where they weren't playing some kind of sport for years and they rush back into it. The next minute they've blown their Achilles or they've done something. So what's your advice as to not get injured or avoiding injuries when you're going back to exercise?
So I have a funny saying when the first session that people come back to exercise, when they come in, is I will say to them, the first session that you do back exercise, you should walk out feeling you could have done way more. And you're still going to wake up the next day glad you didn't do way more. So so that is part of it. The other thing is get some advice. And I know everything, you know, we're bombarded now, and you can get so much free and thrown at you, and Google and all of that stuff. And, you know, every second post seems to be some kind of sponsored ad for a fitness program, or get, you know, lose your belly in 7 days, and all of this type of stuff. Most of it isn't true. And most of it works for such a short term. So if you're coming back to exercise or movement after a relatively long sedentary period, it is important to do it in a safe and effective manner. So go somewhere that has an exercise physiologist, have a sit down with the exercise physiologist, talk about where you're at, where you would like to go, and then do some understanding of where your body is at. And for some people, it won't take very long to get to where you need to be. But a lot of people will go, after 5 or 6 years of hardly exercising at all or playing sport, and then they see an ad for a 8-week boot camp and 3 times a week, and they go in and they start ball slamming and kettlebell swinging and all of this type of stuff without really the advice and technique. They might have, you know, and as you said, they last about a week and a half, and then their back is too sore to get, you know, even go to work and things like that. So seek advice, and seek someone who is going to have a long-term, effective approach. That doesn't mean you're going to be with that person long-term, but they're talking about, okay, we're going to start like this, and, you know, this is where you can build to. I would also say that's incredibly important for women returning to exercise after having their children. Now, I'm not just talking women who might go, I'm going to go back 6 weeks, 6 months after having their children. There are a lot of women who don't really return to exercise until 6 years after having their children. And quite often women will return to exercise believing that the doctor's 6-week checkup is some kind of clearance to be able to exercise fully. That's not the case. That is the closing of the pregnancy journey, is the 6 weeks, and then people rush back in. The other thing is that if you go too hard too fast in lots of things, you'll cause long-term damage, and you might not know that for another 3 or 4 years. So, you know, when you are at 55, 60 and squat jumps are making you have like bladder leakage, for instance, that's probably because what you did in the first 6 months may not have been quite right if you went back to, and people are like, I'm back. So getting good advice that helps you understand where you're at, and also helps you make a bit of a plan that goes beyond an 8-week boot camp that everyone's doing the same thing, you know, and you're eating cabbage soup 3 meals a day. That's probably a better option, to get that good advice.
Yeah, I agree with you. I actually mentioned that in my book. So, you know, I talk about the challenge with challenges and boot camps is that what happens when people finish, because they then just inadvertently revert back to what they were doing before. So they've made some maybe small progress in a short amount of time, but it's not sustaining, and it's not sustainable, and it's not ultimately going to have a long-term impact. So I tend to agree with you. And have you noticed any new trends coming in 2023?
So I definitely think that there has been, for good or bad, in the fitness industry, a move away from very structured group exercise. So I think gone are the aerobics Oz style, everybody standing and an instructor at the front doing that. I think people are seeking a bit more of your circuit-based, strength-based group environment. So that kind of hybrid between group exercise and using the gym as an individual. So you are kind of doing gym-based training, but in a group class environment. So I've certainly seen a rise in that, and, you know, and franchised providers based around that model. You know, COVID and what it forced us to do has taught us a lot of things. So a lot of stuff has moved online, and a lot of fitness elements are now online. So there's now quite a big thing of what was traditionally. So, we're seeing Les Mills online actually be more popular than Les Mills classes, and things like that, because you can access it anytime, anywhere, from your home. So that desire to have some home-based training, there is a trend as well. But we are seeing people, moving back to that I guess desire for true health. And my trends could be skewed a little bit because we don't work on aesthetics, we work on function. We talk a lot about function, so that type of thing. But people are starting to understand that it's not necessarily just about a number on a scale. There's a whole heap of health metrics. So the number on the scale is probably the least important. How well are you sleeping? How are you feeling? How can you move? Those types of things are starting to probably permeate a bit better into the general understanding. There's still a lot of work to go. We'll still have a lot of people come to us and say, and I say, so what's your goal? And they lose 10 kilos. And I will constantly say, well, what is it that actually you believe that being 10 kilos lighter is going to achieve? Oh, well, I'll be able to run around with my kids. I'll be able to do this or that. So they're the real goals. They're the real measures. And I think that is starting to change. But certainly fitness communities, or strength, that kind of health and wellbeing community feel, I think, is the biggest trend, whether that be in those strength class environments or online communities.
Yeah, that's so true, because for me, I want to have longevity so I can keep up with my teenage girls in my 60s. I've made no secret of that over the time. But also it's, I aspired to have good health for a long period of time, and I'd never really worry about my weight so much. So then each day you start making different choices, don't you? Because the longer term goal is to be able to keep up with your family, to be able to look after them, to be able to continue working, because you'll be paying school fees and university fees for the rest of your life. So, you all of a sudden start making a lot of different decisions. So I agree. And I think it's good that we have a balance of online, offline, in-person, in-group. And when the mindset starts to become holistic, as you say, with mind, body, environment, or mind, body, spirit, or whatever words you choose to encapsulate the entirety of a person, it gives people more inspiration to tap into all those different areas.
Yeah, and I think like the crossover now, so we're seeing things that for me, have felt mainstream for a long time, but probably not in the more wider. So we're seeing a far greater acceptance of things like yoga and Pilates and mindfulness, and that being a part of the wellness journey. Now, there's always going to be, everyone's going to have their preferences. There's always going to be people that are going to prefer going to a gym and standing in front of a mirror and just sweating it out. And then there's going to be people that, far more enjoy meditation and that type of thing to do that. But I do believe that things like yoga, which potentially 5 to 10 years ago was still that's a bit hippie. Now are very much, so we've had a rep basketball team doing a course of 8-week Y Fusion, which is a yoga Pilates crossover class, doing that for 8 weeks as part of their preparation to go to state titles. Now, I just feel like there's not a lot of male under 18s basketball teams in the past, 5-10 years ago, that would have accepted that as part of their training, but this team is eager and that type of thing. So I do think that's probably another element of health and well-being, that things that more traditional medicines and traditional ways of movement and things like that are now becoming more mainstream, available and accepted.
Well, that's lovely to hear. I also know that I couldn't have run 2 marathons this year without yoga and stretching as part of a core pillar of what I've been doing for the last 4 years, because I know that if my muscles are well stretched and my joints are nourished, and healthy, then I'm going to be able to run longer. But it also then allows your body to repair and recover quicker, doesn't it?
Yeah, and recovery is a great an important element of performance. And that's where things like sleep and nutrition also come into it. Like the best, and you'd know this from your experiences, but the best recovery, if you can't do anything else, eat well, drink well, like drink lots of water and sleep. So we often talk about the fancier ways of recovery, and I have great friends at Recovery Lab running some really great modalities, but ultimately if you eat good food, drink lots of water and have a sleep, and you're going to come back from physical exertion way better. Throw in some things like rolling, trigger balls, stretching, ice baths, those types of things, and you're going to be even better. But the absolute best thing for your body and your mind is good sleep, good nutrition, whole foods, eaten well, prepared well, lots of water, and sleep, quality sleep. Sometimes easier said than done, but
yeah. Yes, that's good. I embrace all of those. Yesterday morning, I did 12 times 200-meter sprints, and I had a sneaky snooze in the afternoon. I was pretty tired after that.
I can imagine.
Thanks for joining me, and congratulations on your Dare to Think Big award that you won last week. So that's really exciting.
Thank you very much. And thank you so much for having me and sharing, I guess, all your knowledge and the knowledge of other people around you on health and well-being for everybody, because it is very important.
Thank you. That's really kind. Right. Well, I will see you in the gym again soon. Take care of yourself.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.